To be effective at information gathering and identifying possible vulnerabilities, a penetration tester needs to keep up to date with the latest techniques and vulnerabilities, because as you know, vulnerabilities frequently change. We always need to keep on top of this. Every time there's a new security breach, we are provided with the opportunity to add a new tool to our penetration testing arsenal. There is a lot of different sources available, and it's not my goal here to provide you with an exhaustive list. Instead, I'm going to try to focus on a few places that you should recognize, and more specifically, a few types of information that are called out by the exam objectives, such as CVEs and CWEs. Please realize, though, there are many more options available out in the real world, including security blogs, podcasts, and others. The website you should know about first is the Computer Emergency Response Team, or CERT. This is located at cisa.gov/USCERT. This website is maintained by the United States federal government, and it lists all the different known vulnerabilities that have been identified in the wild, as well as those that are self-reported by industry partners. For example, we could click on an article titled CISA Releases Advisory on Destructive Malware Targeting Organizations in Ukraine to find out all about the recommendations and strategies to prepare for and respond to destructive malware. Or perhaps CISA will also have added 4 new vulnerabilities to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, and you can review those as well. JPCERT is our next website. JPCERT is Japan's version of the Computer Emergency Response Team, and it contains similar alerts and advisories about what viruses are on the rise according to their Internet Threat Monitoring. Their website is located at jpcert.or.jp, and they do have an English version of that as well. Another great resource is known as the NVD, or National Vulnerability Database. The National Vulnerability Database is provided by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, known as NIST. This U.S.-focused site is located at nvd.nist.gov, and the web page displays all the latest vulnerabilities and assigns each of them a CVE number. For example, there may be a CVE called CVE-2022-123. This means it's the 123rd vulnerability that was identified during the calendar year of 2022. Each CVE also has a score associated with how dangerous it is, listed as either critical, high, medium, or low severity. Generally, when conducting a penetration test, I focus the majority of my efforts on finding and exploiting the critical and high vulnerabilities in my target networks. As you might imagine, there are lots of vulnerabilities and new ones are coming out all the time. But don't worry, it isn't necessary to memorize every single vulnerability out there. However, you do need to know where to look, because if I identify a target server as running Apache 2.2.2.6, for instance, I can then go and see if there's any vulnerabilities associated with that particular version of Apache. This can then lead me to an exploit, which can provide me a way to enter into that victim's network as a penetration tester. Now, you may be wondering, what exactly is a CVE, and why does the NIST website use them to reference these different vulnerabilities? Well, the acronym CVE stands for the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures, and there is a compilation of them located at cve.org. This common database is used worldwide, and every single vendor submits their known vulnerabilities to the CVE database. Microsoft, VMware, Norton, and all of the others. Anytime there's an issue found with their hardware or software, they submit it into the CVE database, which means this is a great place for us to look when we're doing our open source intelligence and research efforts. Another great source of information is the Common Weakness Enumeration, or CWE, which is located at cwe.mitre.org. This is a community-developed list of all the different types of software weaknesses and the details for those weaknesses. Now, these aren't necessarily vulnerabilities like the ones listed as CVEs, which are more focused on a particular software product and version. Instead, these are common vulnerabilities across all types of software. Therefore, as a software coder or somebody who's conducting penetration testing for software, you should be familiar with and look at the community list as it's continually being updated and expanded. Another thing you should look at is CAPEC, which is the Common Attack Pattern Enumeration and Classification, which is located at capec.mitre.org. This website exists to help us understand and identify a particular attack so that security researchers can better understand the different attack patterns. As of February 2022, there were 546 distinct attack patterns that are used by various threat actors around the globe. This is useful for penetration testers to learn because these are attack patterns that we could be using during a penetration test, or we could be asked to emulate during a red team exercise. For example, if we find a particular threat actor often uses a particular attack pattern, we could then emulate that as part of our red teaming, and CAPEC is an incredibly useful tool from that perspective. Another option for us is known as full disclosure, which is a mailing list from the makers of Nmap. As you're soon going to learn, Nmap is a crucial tool for our scanning, enumeration, and fingerprinting efforts. Nmap's full disclosure list can be read online, received via email, or pushed to your favorite RSS reader, making it a great way to keep up to date with the latest cybersecurity threats and breakthroughs. Now, I know that was a lot of different websites that I just threw out at you. On exam day, you're not going to get asked about a specific website, but you are expected to understand key terms like CVEs and CWEs and how they could be used to link a vulnerability to a potential exploit. In fact, when you start using some exploitation framework tools like Metasploit, they actually link their exploits to the CVE numbers to make things even easier for you. When you run a vulnerability scan against a target, which happens in the vulnerability scanning part of our engagements, those tools will also report the vulnerabilities in terms of CVEs too most of the time, making it really easy for you to identify and then link them to an exploit as a penetration tester.